Murray and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Okay, apologize there that we lost Ralph, and I apologize for that because Ralph was mentioning that, and it is true that the initial report for Johnny Furphy was that he was taken to the hospital on Monday in New York, and of course the Pacers are in New York to take on the Knicks, and that in New York is where the MRI confirmed his injury and that he was taken to the hospital for a special surgery. Now, Ralph, I believe, said there, and I don't want to misquote him here, but that it was his understanding that that surgery has taken place. I think Rick Carlisle said this morning that that surgery had not. Of course, that could be that it happened, earlier within the last couple of hours or since Rick Carlisle was on the morning show. And I apologize for the technical difficulty there because Ralph, I think, is just an outstanding guest. I always appreciate his time and perspective on it. And in addition, just in talking about the Olympics, I could talk about that. I mean, the Furphy injury and the getting the surgery. I mean, I think we know that the timeline for that, typically it's somewhere between 6 to 12 months. It depends on the severity of the injury. But even still, the one drawback would be that Furphy, to me, was starting to really start to show some things, and in particular, his rebounding game. He is a good shooter. I wouldn't say he's a great shooter, but he is a good shooter. He is a good baseline shooter, and he has a quick release. And defensively, I think that he was really starting to come into his own defensively, notably with his ability to close airspace, to use a Pat Riley term, on offensive players and just get up and utilize his body in that regard. And Furphy in those areas, that is somebody who certainly has shown something. And the true bummer here is for a young player, and right now is the perfect opportunity. The perfect opportunity for young players because of the fact that when you look at it, and I know I said the other day, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask Ralph about, is I would assume with any player in the NBA at this point, there is always something that is looming and or nagging in terms of an injury that needs more time. And if that's the case, then do you now all of a sudden say Pascal Siakam's got a hamstring tightness that needs to be addressed? Aaron Nesmith has an ankle that needs rest. If Indiana, and I really believe this, the Pacers are wanting to hold on to one of those top 4 spots. And so therefore, do you start to get creative with that? I think we have Ralph back. Ralph, before we get to that question, I wanted to give you a chance to rehash. Right when we lost you, I believe you said that it was your understanding or you had word that Furphy either has had surgery or is going to have surgery imminently. Is that correct?
Everything I could find was that he had surgery in New York City yesterday.
Okay. If that, and even if it, because I think Rick Carlisle said this morning that they were still waiting on that. Either way, he's obviously going to have it, right? What is the timetable on a return for something like that in terms of what's the fastest a guy can come back and what is the most cautious time frame?
Well, a person we always point to, you might be familiar with, Clemson football player Amari Rogers.
Yep.
Sort of set the record for 5.5 months post ACL. I think he tore it in spring football, came back sooner than expected. And then Adrian Peterson, of course, NFL running back, was pretty speedy at 8 months. So we medically like to say 8 to 10 months. That's a big window, but there's a lot of human nuances to coming back from that. Great thing is Johnny's 21 years old. To my knowledge, he's not been injured before. It can be good and bad, meaning it's going to be to go through a rehabilitation process. But his age will certainly be to his benefit, and I would say to just circle on the calendar for basketball, the NBA experience would be 10 months.
The other side of that would be, Ralph, as I was talking about, when you look at some of the players on Indiana, Pascal Siakam, Aaron Nesmith, whatever it might be, if Indiana wanted to give some of these guys time off and they didn't want to be completely disingenuous in doing so, is it safe to say that at this point in the year for any NBA player, there is always something that would need rest and relaxation or simply time to get back to 100%? If you were looking for reason to give a guy some time to get to 100%, so to speak?
Well, there's certainly the mental wear and tear, the mental fatigue, as well as the physical fatigue. And those are the two biggest things. And, as you look through the daily NBA rosters around the league and then how teams, there's certain categories they slide players into that they're out due to injury or they're out due to, prescribed rest. And so, the NBA has created those situations where it's allowable. And at this point, it's sort of like late in an NFL season. Everybody that runs out on the field has something going on, right? And because of the nature of the game. And the NBA is certainly the same thing. It's a lot of soft tissue wear and tear, whether it's my foot's a little sore, or my hamstring's a little sore, or my shoulders are tight, et cetera, et cetera. So,
what is the typical when a guy comes back or gal from an ACL injury? Ralph Reif is my guest on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. When a player comes back from a knee injury like that, which we see more of now than we used to, perhaps, how long, Ralph, in your observation or experience, does it take for the player to psychologically come back to trust the knee?
That's a great question, and it's an area that our industry is paying a lot more attention to. And when I say paying attention to is what is the confidence level of the athlete, and we throw it into that sort of bucket of calling it confidence. And in other words, you're getting over fear and not sure. I've got a new feeling in my leg, and I've got to get used to that. That's one that I have seen pop up just so often, where the athlete will come back from an ACL and everything checks out on the metrics, strength, and their ability to jump, or the force they put into the ground, everything that we can measure. They measure really well, but they say it doesn't feel right. That's generally from the standpoint that the neuromuscular system gets injured just as much as the ACL is torn. All of the nerves that run through the leg and around and through the joint, they're disrupted as well. And that healing process is hard. So that tracks right to the brain, which affects your mental outlook on, hey, it doesn't feel right. So what's my level of confidence? We now have different surveys, processes, charts that we can measure the mental readiness just as we measure the strength of the quadricep muscle group. And so it's being utilized more and more and more. And so to answer that question, because that's always the lingering question, has been for as long as I've been in the business. The coach, the parent, the player, teammates will say, is the athlete ready? Where do you think they are mentally? Well, now we've got tools through the great work of the sports psychology community. We've got some tools that can really allow us to measure that. So Johnny Furphy will be on his own timetable with that, just like Tyrese Halliburton and Ralph Reif. We're as individual as fingerprints when it comes to the mental readiness.
Well, Ralph, when it's on your own time schedule, I appreciate the fact that you make time for us to come on this show. It is a segment that's one of my favorites, and I know listeners as well. Always informative, and appreciate also the resiliency today with the reconnect there. Much appreciated.
Thanks for hanging with me. It's always great to be a part of it.
I appreciate it. Ralph Reif joining us, Java House Peel and Pour guest line. We talked about Purdue and Nebraska. Purdue's got to get on the right side of things here. Not to say that they haven't, because they've obviously got a couple in the win column, but this is a big test tonight. What exactly is Fred Hoiberg bringing to the table? We'll get into that with somebody who covers the Huskers next. Hey there, Jake Corey for Game Day Men's Health. GameDayMen'sHealth.com is the website where you can find out about their clinics in the Indy metro area, including Avon, Carmel, Fishers, and Greenwood. Great folks. Went up there and talked to Scott and the folks in Carmel, and it's fabulous because you're talking about a personalized game plan towards getting you guys back in shape, whether you were looking at testosterone therapies, whether you can get peptide therapies, which helps out just in recovery in your workouts. All of it right there at Game Day, and a game plan designed for you, because they're going to look at the numbers that are best for you. They're going to look at the therapies that are best for you. And again, come up with a game plan that you're comfortable with based on the number of different things that they provide at Game Day Men's Health. All of that within an hour, and all of it done right there with FDA-approved pharmacies and, of course, the clinical work done on site. Game Day Men's Health. Find them online at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Avon, Carmel, Fishers, Greenwood. Make an appointment, find a consultation, find the therapy that is best for your game plan and getting you back in the game. GameDayMen'sHealth.com.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Great song. And the symphony for Purdue this year has at times been bittersweet. We thought that it was going to be a wire-to-wire story for the Boilers and Matt Painter just in terms of always having the right harmony towards winning. But not to say that that's going to be the case, because it's going to be a big one tonight for them, taking on Nebraska. 7 o'clock tip tonight. Joining us now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line, he is the sports director at KETV in Omaha, Nebraska. A return guest to the program, Andy Kendi, joins us on the program. Andy, how are you? Do we have Andy, Eddie?
That was my fault.
There we go. Andy, sorry, we had a producer that hit a blip button. You know that drill, don't you?
Yeah, I know. Well, he probably thought I was swearing, talking like I normally do.
That's
How
right.
are you, brother? Good to talk to you, my man. Good to hear your voice.
I'm well. Listen, I did not think in the years that we have known each other, Andy, and I thought about this last night, did you ever think the day would come where Indiana football would become Nebraska football of yesteryear and Nebraska basketball would be the Indiana basketball of yesteryear?
Yeah, it's so nice to talk to somebody from a football-playing state. This is great, the home of the national champions.
That's right.
And I don't know if you know this, but Nebraska not only is a volleyball school, but Nebraska is now a basketball school, which is just unbelievable what we're going through here in the state. I could not have predicted this. I don't think many people could. Now, everybody thought they were going to be better this year, Jake, but to what extent and to this extent, nobody could have predicted this.
What has been the reasoning for it? What has Fred Hoiberg done with this roster, and what is the challenge it creates for Purdue?
Well, one, they got a healthy Rink Mass back. He was out last year with a major knee injury, and Rink was really the key to their NCAA tournament run 2 years ago. And having him back, he's the guy. Fred likes to run his offense through a kind of a point big. So Rink is up at the top of the key, a guy who can shoot it, but also can distribute. And, if he has to, he can drive to the hoop. And that provides a mismatch to, bringing another big out with him. So I think that's the first key. Number two, they got a couple of key transfers. One, a guy in the portal who came back to Nebraska, Jamarcus Lawrence. He's a point guard. And then the other guy is Price Sanford, whose brother Peyton played for Iowa, as did Price last year. And Price came over from Iowa to Nebraska when Iowa had their coaching change. And he's been fantastic. And then the X factor is this Braden Frager. This guy is technically a true freshman year-wise, though he enrolled early and reclassified. So this guy's a young kid, but he's coming off an ankle injury. But when he's at full strength, he gives Nebraska an extra element because he can slash and drive to the hoop. And I think that's been a real big key for this team, is the emergence of Braden Frager along with those other things. And, and the guy we don't talk about is Sam Hoiberg, and we should, because he's kind of a glue guy, does all the little things. He's Fred's son, and he's really turned into a nice player. He's basically a team leader in plus minus. And what's really scrappy about him is he's 6 feet tall, and I think he's second on the team in rebounds. So the guy is smarter than smart, and he's a tough matchup because he's so scrappy.
Andy, I was looking at it, and Andy Kendi is my guest from Omaha, talking about Nebraska basketball. And the way that Hoiberg has built this team, and offensively speaking, the fact that they are so forward-oriented. Usually you see your leading scorers being in your ball control being your backcourt guys, right? Do they draw bigs away a little bit in terms of defensively speaking? Trey Kaufman-Wren or Fletcher Lawyer, are they going to have to be guarding now further out from the basket, and does that give advantage to second chance opportunities for Nebraska?
Well, that's the hope. And I didn't mention Bryce Buchnagel, and he's a big lefty, big tall guy who can put the ball on the ground if he needs to. They like to spread the floor, and they like to shoot the three. And the more that they can get the bigs out from under the hoop, the better. Now, when I say struggled, they lost back-to-back games. They didn't have Rink Mass for the Michigan game, and Braden Frager was off for the Michigan game. And then when they both did come back, Illinois just had the better of them on that second loss. And Rink was still dealing with dehydration issues. He was hospitalized for a period of time. So not to make excuses, because Illinois deserved to win that game. But getting back to the thing, your question is drawing the bigs out is a key. But I think on the flip side, where they really struggled in those games was offensively, the opponent really tried to bang in there because they have size mismatches. And I think that's where Purdue could have an advantage tonight because of their size. And if Purdue can win the battle of the boards, they got a real good chance, because eliminating second chance opportunities for Nebraska when they're defending Purdue, that's going to be one of the keys to this game, because Purdue's so big, they've got the size advantage, and if Nebraska can keep Purdue one and done shooting the ball wise, I think Nebraska has a real good shot. But if you can see those second chance opportunities by Purdue, I think that's where the Boilers are really, really going to have the advantage.
Andy, is it still surreal? I know in Indiana, and IU fans will probably get mad at me for saying this, right? But I think most Indiana fans still are. It's just odd to see the Clemsons and the Florida States and the Miamis and the Alabamas and the Oklahomas of the world and think Indiana was better than all of them this year in football, right?
Yeah.
Are you having the same delay of epiphany when it comes to Nebraska basketball?
Well, I was thinking about this just a little earlier today. You know, the thing about it is that you see Nebraska on the schedule, and I think most of your listeners will agree. Like, you see Nebraska on the basketball schedule, you're like, it's Nebraska. Yeah, they're 20-2 or 21-2, but it's Nebraska, right? It's Nebraska. Kind of like what most people took about a year and a half to figure out about Indiana. You see Indiana football, and you're like, yeah, it's Indiana. Yeah, they're okay, but it's Indiana. They'll come back to earth. That's what I think the Nebraska basketball fans are hearing a lot of nationally. Like, yeah, it's a nice run, but they'll eventually come crashing down to earth because they're Nebraska basketball. They have zero history. They've never won an NCAA tournament game. So I think in that respect, I think there's a comparison. But I will tell you that the Kurt Signetti comparison to every other program, because Matt Rule gets asked this all the time. He was like, we didn't do it like Indiana. You're like, it's always a disclaimer, like, we're not Indiana. You're like, oh, okay, but obviously Indiana did it the way they did it, and it turned out to be a brilliant blueprint to win a national championship. You might want to take some notes, right? I mean, that was a pretty epic run these last couple of years. And I think if Nebraska basketball, listen, Jake, this is a program that's never won an NCAA tournament game. The only power conference team in America that can say that. They have never won an NCAA tournament game. And now we're talking 2-seed, 3-seed, 4-seed. We're trying to get hotel rooms and places that are, opening weekend that are close enough in proximity so we can get the upper hand in it. This is uncharted territory. So I think Nebraska fans are smart enough to enjoy this. But it is. We are having to get used to Nebraska as a basketball school. I'm sure, much like Indiana, had to get used to being a football school.
Well, and does Indiana football? I know what football means to the people of Nebraska. I know it because I once drove across the entire state of Nebraska on a road trip on a Saturday, and I'm 550 miles from Lincoln at 7 in the morning, and there's cars caravanning, right? And,
Yep.
the number of sellout games and everything else. What did Indiana's football run do for the Nebraska football fan base? I mean, weren't there people that were like, how in the world does Indiana do it, and we can't get this done?
100%. How is Indiana doing it? What's their secret sauce? And why can't Nebraska do it with just as many, if not more, resources dedicated to football and facilities that are outstanding and a fan base, as you know, that lives and breathes for football? And I'll tell you what, Dick, this is, we normally are breaking down position battles for spring practice at this point. There has been very little chatter about Nebraska football these last couple of weeks because of the basketball success. And I think, maybe that's a good thing for Nebraska football because they're coming off a 7-win season for the second straight year, which is good when you think about where they have been in years past. However, the 7 wins this season doesn't hit like the 7 wins did last season because they won their bowl game a year ago, and this year they got manhandled by Utah and a team that most people thought that they could stack up against better. But, back to your thing, like Matt Rule will preface something saying about the way Indiana has done it and that they have taken a different approach, at least initially. Now they're starting to get the value of the transfer portal and really going all in. I mean, Nebraska's recruiting class is 11. It's the smallest recruiting class of high school kids ever. They lost their 5-star quarterback because he transferred to Oregon. He wanted too much money. And now they bring in a quarterback from UNLV and Anthony Calandra, who hopefully will give Nebraska a running and throwing threat. So it all comes back to football in this state. This basketball thing has been a really nice diversion. And I think if Nebraska can show some success in basketball, the AD has already said the basketball is going to get more resources as we move forward, because I think everybody sees what kind of, what this boost can do for the athletic department as a whole when your basketball team plays well, as you guys very well know in the state of Indiana.
Does Fred Hoiberg in this group, Andy Kendy's my guest from KETV in Omaha, when you look at this installment of Nebraska basketball, Andy, can they be a chameleon in their style, or do they have one definitive style of play and come and get it and take your shot with them?
No, here's the thing about Fred. Like, people forget, like, Fred came in as this offensive guru guy that, runs all these sets, and he still does that to a point. But I think what he's evolved, this is his 7th year here, and he was really on the hot seat after years 3 and 4. A lot of people thought he wouldn't be back, and yet the administration stuck with him, and they have been rewarded because what Nebraska does so well is they play team defense. It is really refreshing to see everybody as connected as they are on the defensive side of the ball. And that's something, as you know, when you're not shooting, you can't shoot lights out every game, right? You can't. But the one thing you can do is play tough defense every game. And I think that's the one thing Nebraska has been able to do, not just at the end of last year, but carried over to this year. They really play good team defense. And if they can eliminate second chance opportunities, they can be in games with just about anyone. And here's the thing, too. And when they shoot it well, if they hit 14, 15 threes on a night, look out. And that home court advantage, now granted, it's an early start here. It's 6 o'clock local time here, 7 o'clock Eastern. So that will be a challenge, but I guarantee you, every game is sold out now at Pinnacle Bank Arena. People are jazzed for this team. They want to see Nebraska knock off another ranked team, and this would be one of their better wins of the year, and on a schedule this is probably their highest ranked opponent as we move down here the stretch of the regular season until they get to the Big Ten tournament. So if you want to move up that seed line, if you want to give yourself a better line on that resume, you got to win tonight.
So 6 o'clock tip Nebraska time, 7 o'clock in the Eastern time zone, of course. That means that everybody's got to wrap up their drinks at Barry's. Isn't it Barry's? Isn't that the name of the joint?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. You know it very well. Barry's right down the street, baby.
Yeah, I went to Barry's, and my buddy Byron and I were driving through Lincoln. They were playing Michigan. We're like, let's find the local, legendary place. So we go to Barry's. It was on a football Saturday. We found 2 other guys, the only 2 guys there that were the same age as the 2 of us. Byron drank 7 Busch Lights in 15 minutes, and then now suddenly is ready to move to Nebraska and buy all red and white gear. And I'm like, no, dude, we got a road trip to get to. We got to get on the road. Right.
Yeah, Barry's has that upper deck, too. And with the way the weather's been, shoot, it was 75 degrees here yesterday, Jake. It was like
75.
People are going to spring break here. I mean, we have plenty of room. Today it's more back down to normal. It's like 45 degrees here, but still, it's been nice. We're talking about the College World Series, which is right around the corner.
I've always heard that's a cool trip, man. One of these days, you're going to get one of my annoying texts saying, "Hey, I'm in Omaha for the College World Series," and then we'll drive over to Barry's. That's what we're going to do.
Anytime. I'll show you the local haunts here, and the College World Series for all you baseball fans out here. Indiana made it with Kyle Schwarber back in the day.
Correct.
That was something else. I'll tell you, man, the College World Series. If you've never been, it's like a festival centered around baseball. It's a celebration of the sport with plenty of food and drink to be had.
I've always heard it's cool, so that is a bucket list type deal. Andy, I appreciate it as always, man, and we'll see what happens tonight between Purdue and Nebraska, but appreciate the insights as always.
Anytime, my man, Jake. Good to talk to you.
I appreciate it. Andy Kendi, who goes way back, by the way. It's funny in this line of work, the people that I'd like to think, by listening to that, you would think that Andy and I, went to college together or something. That's not the case. He worked at the ABC television affiliate in Milwaukee at the time that I was at the ABC television station here in Indy. And he was well ahead of where I was and still is in his career. But Andy, just in swapping tape back and forth, and at that time I was trying really hard to get a job in television, and his because he was in Milwaukee and covered the Packers, he knew a lot of the folks in Green Bay. And so I was trying to get a job in Green Bay and actually had an opportunity to go up there and interview, but I got a job elsewhere. But that's how I got to know Andy. I don't know that in person I've spent a lot of time with him, but always just via the phone and satellite tape swaps and things like that. You just get to know people. And Andy actually had, and I say this only because I think it's an important thing for people to know, and he's open about it, so I'm not spilling any sort of info here, but Andy's my age, and a couple of years ago, he had a pain in his lower back and thought he had a herniated disc and went to the doctor and found out that he actually had an infection and an abscess in his spine, which knocked him out of work for quite some time. He lost a lot of weight, had to fight back to a health standpoint, but he has been very vocal and active in Omaha and around Nebraska of making sure that people are conscientious and aware with little things like that of staying on it and checking all the boxes instead of just immediately dismissing it. Because Eddie, as you'll find out, once you get 150,000 miles on the car, man, like every single knock that takes place with underneath the hood, you got to take a look at it differently than if it was just a $20,000 rental car or a 20,000-mile rental car. You know what I mean? But Andy's a good dude. That's going to be a good matchup tonight. And again, I think one of the things that's going to be interesting for Purdue is the way that Nebraska operates offensively and the way they can kind of draw people away from the low block. That, and I'm telling you, Purdue, if Purdue's going to get right, it's got to start this week because you go at Nebraska and at Iowa. You drop those two, and then you're taking on lots of water. I don't know what it is with Purdue. Defensively, they have dropped off. Cohesiveness does not seem to be there. My understanding is from people that are around it that that's not a concern, at least when you look at it up front or from a close perspective. But I really do think that there is some truth to the theory of simply, look, when you have a roster, as Purdue does, that you have, it's great to have everybody come back, right? It's great to have like all your players back. But when you have with Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer and Trey Kaufman-Wren, and yes, I know Clough is new, right? But when you are running the same sets in the same system because you are running the same personnel, that is truly to be commended. But at the same time, it means that unlike Nebraska, unlike Iowa, unlike Indiana, there isn't as much tape. I was always bewildered to go back to when I talked about Indiana and the way that they practiced for allegedly, 3+ hours the night before they played Syracuse and that great team that they had with Oladipo and Zeller and that group. I always marveled at why Indiana seemingly was so dumbfounded by Syracuse's matchup zone because Syracuse had run that same zone for 40 years. And that truly, if you really want to tip the cap to great coaching, and I think that, Syracuse was always an interesting team to me because Boeheim, he mastered that zone so much that they would oftentimes go to a Final Four or make a deep tournament run out of nowhere. And it's because during the Big East season, they were going against teams that were familiar with what they did and saw it every year. Then they'd get into the tournament, and all of a sudden, they're facing Texas A&M and then Memphis State and then Indiana and then, UCLA. And it's four teams that while you see it when you're flipping the channels, you've never been in the thick of it against that matchup zone, and it completely throws you out of kilter. And so there was a difference between the way that they were able to compete within their conference and when they got out of the conference because of familiarity. And Purdue may well be right now battling with the strength of familiarity for their opponent. And that it may be as simple as that. It might also be that there are issues with when you're around the same people and the same colleagues and the same teammates and the same coworkers, you can get along like brothers, but brothers argue with each other. And siblings argue with each other, and you get on each other's nerves, and it's easy to, without even knowing it, go rogue. It just is. Eddie, I thought it was pretty cool that Zubac just called in and we weren't even necessarily expecting it. Just boom, there it was, right?
I know, right? It's what I do. I come through in the clutch.
Did he say Z? When he called in, did he say it's me, Z?
No, I was talking with Michael Preston before. I didn't get the chance to introduce myself to Ivica.
Oh, you didn't?
I did not know.
Do you think he was offended when I asked him the correct pronunciation of his name?
No, I always think that athletes respect people that do that just so that you're pronouncing the name correctly. I mean, I know you're very sensitive to that.
I am. And there have been, and I know I've mentioned this before, there have been players that their name publicly is pronounced differently than the way that if you say to them, how do you pronounce your last name? Tony Kanaan would be a prime example. I've mentioned before, he was Tony Kanan growing up, and then he comes here, and everybody says Kanaan, so he just rolls with it. Mike Vanderjagt, when he first came to town, I remember Ed Sorensen. I was working at Channel 6, and we ran a soundbite from Vanderjagt where Ed Sorensen put his arm around him, and Ed Sorensen for him said, buddy, if you were at a Christmas party, how would you introduce yourself? And he said, it's Vanderjagt, Vonderjot, Vanderjagt. But everybody said Vanderjagt, and it just stuck. Now he's Mike Vanderjagt. But I can tell you when your last name is Query, you're very sensitive to it, right?
Right.
What's your middle initial, Eddie?
T.
Your parents, your middle name should have been like Frank.
Really?
Yeah, because then your initials would be sequential, and that'd be fun, right?
Really?
EFG. Kind of like QR. Those two letters go together, and they roll off the tongue, and the kids, I'm hearing more and more of it.
Or just the letter K. That also work.
What's that?
Or just the letter K for me.
Yeah, I know that one, right?
Yeah.
Or E. But that yesterday I was on the street and just walking along, and two guys were talking, and somebody else said, "Did I hear what I thought I heard?" And I heard a kid say, "They're just speaking QR." QR. No, I'm serious. It's with the young people. Now, I wouldn't expect you to know this because it's with young kids, but they're over the 6'7" thing, and they're all hip to the QR.
No.
No, I'm telling you, they love it.
The 6'7" thing's still a thing. I was helping time at Decatur Central last night for a middle school swim meet, and I heard 6'7" way too many times. Yeah, it's not dead.
No, you're confused. Most of the better swimmers were in lanes 6 or 7, and so when they were reading off the results, they were saying 6, 7, just in lanes.
You don't understand the timing prowess that I have, Jake. They had me in lane 6, so I was where the fast swimmers were.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. And then they were saying, so if you were timing lane 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's all you were hearing was they were reading it off. Lane 1, time, lane 2. So as they were reading it off, they're like 6, and you'd say it, and then like 7. So you thought you were hearing 6, 7. That's totally passé.
Oh, no.
No, the theme of the day has been about getting rid of the past and springing forward. And that's what we're doing here in terms of springing forward with it, right? Stephen Holder is with ESPN.com, and I'm sure thrilled to be joining the QR conversation. Stephen, you're hip to the QR conversation, are you not? You just said no break.
No, I said break. I meant to say break, and I meant to say no to what you were saying.
You said no break. Holder right now in my ear.
Well, yes.
You know
I
what
meant to say no.
You know what you were doing?
No, we need to get to
improperly
break.
speaking in QR.
We need.
You
to
were
get to
trying
break.
to speak in QR in code.
We need to break. No,
but improperly,
no.
right? I mean, you were stuck on the 6, 7. We got to get you up to speed on the QR.
No.
QR. Stephen Holder next. Hey there, Jake Query for Surfside. New flavors are out for Surfside. They're available in 4-packs, combo packs. Think about this. Blueberry tea Blueberry lemonade, excuse me. Blueberry lemonade with a splash of vodka, iced tea with a splash of vodka as well. Raspberry tea, number of different flavors, and you can mix and match. Surfside is the very best. I'm talking about 100 calories, 2 grams of sugar, and no carbonation. So very smooth to enjoy. Surfside is available wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Please be 21 and please drink responsibility. But Surfside, whether you're looking for the lemonade, whether you're looking for the iced tea with a splash of vodka, look for the can with the sunset stripes.
Berry and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Little summer tunes all day long with the 54-degree heat, right?
It's a heat wave, Jake.
You know, I'm a little uncomfortable with your Speedo. But other than
I'm
that...
not wearing a Speedo. I'm not Kevin Bowen, okay?
Okay. It is nice out, is it not?
It's very nice outside, yes.
Join us now, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so based on that introduction. He's on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. You read his work at ESPN.com. Stephen Holder joining us. Stephen, I'd like to know this. When the first taste of spring hits you and you're driving around, even though we know this is a false spring at this point, what song do you put on the radio and turn up and roll the windows down?
Well, I want to start by saying I am glad we are doing this remotely and not in the studio based on what you just laid out there.
That's right.
Speedos and the whole nine, so I don't know what's going on.
Not happening, Steven. He's lying.
Spring is too early for a Speedo, though, I would say.
Is there any time that is there any time where it's not too early or late for a Speedo? I mean, let's be real here.
That is true. That is true. See, there's a lot of summer songs. What's a spring song? I don't know.
A spring song is one that makes you feel like it's summer, right? I guess. You know what I mean?
Yes. I don't know. That's a great question. You hit me out of left field on this one. I got to think about it. But I would say, all the songs that mention summertime you can't use because it's not summer. So let's circle back later in this segment because I am like, I don't know. I think I turned my brain off in the off season. So bear with me.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
Well, Jake's is never on, so.
That is correct. All right, I'm going to begin with this question, Stephen. This time a year ago, I think we would have been surprised if we would have looked into a crystal ball and seen that the Seattle Seahawks would be the Super Bowl champions, but it all came together for them. Give me two franchises that right now you look at and say they may not have been overwhelming in the 2025 season heading into 26 offseason, but they could be next year's Seattle Seahawks. Give me two.
So, I don't know if I completely believe this, but the Carolina Panthers, there's something there. Like, I'm looking for a non-obvious one, because we wouldn't pick them right now, right? But I think if they could do what, say, the Patriots did, which is like really retool that thing with free agency, they have some good pieces already. They have a quarterback, maybe, right? I don't know that I believe in them, but who knows, right? That would be a team. It would take a big leap, but there's a basis of something there. I was going to say Jacksonville, but I don't think that would be like stunning, right? Because they have definitely a good foundation going on there. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to leave them out of this conversation. Let's see. I think the Atlanta Falcons have a lot of talent.
Okay.
But I don't know what the quarterback situation. I just don't feel great about the quarterback situation. But I think they have a lot of talent. They have a great running back. They have great skill talent on offense. They have some pieces on defense. Why can't they take another step? I don't know. So I don't know. Those are wild picks, but I think both of these Super Bowl entrants this year would have been wild picks a year ago. So anyway.
Eddie mentioned in my ear, and this might be a year premature, but we'll get your thoughts, Stephen Holder. Could the Tennessee Titans and Cam Ward be next year's New England?
So I would say this. I saw more from Drake May as a rookie than I did from Cam Ward as a rookie. I think Drake May was better as a rookie his first year. But I do think Cam Ward is their guy. Whether he can be as good as Drake May was with a better supporting cast around him, I don't know. Drake May's supporting cast his rookie year was awful, to be completely honest. And he rose above it and I thought established himself as a franchise quarterback. Their roster was terrible a year ago. It really is a remarkable turnaround. But anyhow, I do think maybe you're right about that, a year too early there. But They have some picks to work with. They have some pieces that they can work with. We'll see. And I love their coaching staff. Love that coaching staff. That they're going to be really well coached.
Stephen, is there a team? Stephen Holder is my guest, Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Seattle, to me, they were so stout defensively, and they disrupted so much Drake May, and that's what they did throughout the course of the year. I mean, their front four was just flat nasty. What team out there has the youth on a defensive line that if it all comes together, you could blink your eyes and go, wow, they are fast and furious?
Let's see. So, thinking about this, I mean, we know Houston, but they've already been established. I don't think that's a future projection. That's already established. I would say this is an interesting one. That's interesting.
I mean, there's been enough investment. Here's why I ask. There's been enough investment from Chris Ballard from the Indianapolis standpoint that, could Liatu suddenly take a step and then boom, all of a sudden now you've got something if Buckner gets one last real push at things, or are we at the point of simply saying the Colts have sat around and talked about it for 10 years and we just now have to admit that it's not an area they're very strong?
All right, so this is a good conversation. I think let's go to Seattle, for example. Look at Seattle. I don't think it's really individual pieces on that defense. I think it's the sum is greater than the parts on that defense. Like, who's the star player on that defense? There's a couple guys who are kind of name guys. I think that's fair, but there's no. They don't have Von Miller in his prime. They don't have Myles Garrett. They don't have that type of guy. They have a collection of guys. And I do think the Colts will probably need to approach it that way. I mean, they have some stars, like Sauce Gardner is a star player. There's no question about that. Then they have a couple guys who are maybe in the upper levels of their position. Cam Bynum, really good safety. But I think more so, if they're going to be a good defense, at this point, particularly given DeForest Buckner's age, because he can't be, for the most part, he can't be, that prime 25-year-old DeForest Buckner anymore. So you're going to have to do this, I think, like the Seahawks have, which is collectively. I don't have a problem with it. I think that's the way to do it. But you've got to draft really well. You got to hit in free agency, and it's all got to come together. I think that's the roadmap for the Colts, and maybe they can pull that off because they don't have. I mean, Latu could be a guy who takes that next step. That I do agree with, but I also don't know if that singularly is enough. I mean, you need a collection of guys, and Seattle is a great blueprint, I think, for a lot of teams out there. If you maybe don't have the high-level stars on defense.
Give me a name, Stephen, of somebody on the Colts roster right now, not named Michael Pittman, that is contractually bound to play next year, yet it wouldn't surprise you at all if we find out that the Colts have moved on from them.
So this would surprise me, maybe, but I think we have to at least put it out there. Zaire Franklin.
Yep.
I don't think it's going to happen. Okay, let me be clear. Don't nobody go post on a blog that I said this is happening. I don't think it's happening. But I think if we're for the purposes of this conversation, I think you're going to have to retool that defense, right? They will retool that defense. I think more than people realize, just because they kind of have to. And I think Chris Ballard talking at the end of the season about needing to get more athletic and faster on defense, I think that says maybe they have to rethink some of this. I think you can do that and maybe not part ways with the only real viable linebacker you even have, because let's be honest, they don't have any linebackers on this team. So I think that works in Zaire's favor. But, there's the money, there's the fact that he is not one of those, speed type guys that he is seeking, Chris Ballard is seeking. So there's a couple of factors there that would at least make that a possible conversation. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But if you're asking me for a surprise guy, that would be somebody that comes to mind.
But it feels to me, Stephen, and you tell me if I'm off base, it feels to me like Zaire Franklin, of the players of productivity, and he has been productive, of the players of productivity, Zaire Franklin may be the one whose productivity is most easily replicated by perhaps someone that is less expensive.
Okay, now that's a fair point. And I think that's because the position
Correct.
It's not personal towards Zaire Franklin.
Correct.
I think
it's a system position, right?
The reality. It's the reality of linebacker in the NFL, right? I mean, they are eminently replaceable. Not him, just linebackers generally. I think there are a handful of guys out there who are certainly very difficult to replace. But I would say most teams, in a moment of honesty, most executives would probably tell you, if I had to find somebody that's replaceable on my defense, linebacker's probably where they start, because that position has just taken on less importance over the years with the way offenses are matchup based. When you're looking for a good matchup, you're matching up on a linebacker today. So it's almost that position is almost to your detriment if you're playing them too much. So yeah, I think you're right about that.
Stephen, what's the latest upcoming from ESPN.com or things that you will be working on?
So I did file a story today. I don't know when we'll publish it, but this week on Anthony Richardson, and I think it's just a good time for a what's next story about Richardson, because that's a big question. And I think there's a lot of questions there. I think he plays somewhere else next season, personally. That is my prediction. I don't know that it's etched in stone. Nobody's requested a trade that I'm aware of as of now, but I think the indicators, for me at least, are that he's probably going to be somewhere else.
Pick it right now. Just throw it out there right now. The franchise he'll be playing for is who? Go, boom, go.
I mean, completely unscientific without any real deep thought on it. Minnesota, I don't know.
Okay, Eddie?
They certainly have an unstable quarterback situation.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
Steven, I thought I was about to hit the dump button there for a second. I would also go with Minnesota.
Keep in mind, Ryan Grigson there. I think they're going to make a push Daniel Jones just because I think it'd be a saucy, sexy story.
It would be. It would be.
Wouldn't it? I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints.
Not bad. I think Arizona's an interesting situation.
Yeah, Arizona too. Yep. That's
what
always
are they doing? I don't know, but I think
let's go with Cleveland. Let's go with Cleveland. Let's bring on all the dumpster fire, right? Let's go with Cleveland.
Sure. Listen, he's in the same range as in QBR as their quarterback.
That's right.
Hey,
don't say that too loudly. People get upset. Stephen, appreciate it, man, as always.
All right, guys. See you soon.
All right, Stephen Holder joining us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. J&V's just outside the window here. We'll find out what he's got lined up on his big program. We'll do it as part of the crossover, brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com, the website, 317-353-2141.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I noticed, by the way, Eddie.
I just noticed it too. Has it been like that the entire show?
I don't think so. But I've switched it over. We can do this now with the crossover. I can officially switch it to J and B in the background here. John, you just actually gave me a bit of information that got me super excited, and then I looked something up, and now I'm super bummed.
Oh, was it the Garcia's Pizza in the Pan?
No.
No. Was it Johnny Sacco?
No. April 19th.
Thomas Dolby.
At the Vogue on April 19th.
Right.
I would be there so fast.
You got a race?
Long Beach, which I love being in Long Beach,
Yeah.
but
You'll be
man,
all right.
I would love to see it. I might have to see where else he's playing. Does he do like a tour?
I think, but this is going to be this is a guy that doesn't do much.
I know.
So that's why I want to. It's like the Fix last year. I try to pick out those that don't do much. Todd Meyer made a great point about it'd be great to see Gary Newman do this too,
totally.
of Cars fame, because you just never get the opportunity to see these guys. But yeah, Thomas Dolby at the Vogue, Jake, coming up in April. And
If
that
Madness
should be
got
fun.
together, I'd be all over that too.
No, see, I want to see Madness big time. They have such a great catalog
And
that
they
most
were
of
like
America doesn't know.
Well, because they were a ska band
Right.
before, you
They
know what I
were.
mean? Before they were doing what they did. What's lined up on the
It
big
must
show
be
today,
love,
John?
love, love. I could sing that. We got Chad Buchanan is going to call in, I think, a little bit later on. I want to ask him this. You think they have Ted Wu working on, because I know they have the draft simulator and the odds simulators all over the internet. Or you think they're running numbers on 1 through 4 and what it's going to take, how much you have to lose to end up securing 1 through 4?
I think they absolutely are looking at it. Right?
This trade is not going to be close if you don't get 1 through 4. To me, there's no way it's going to live up to anybody's expectations.
See, I will disagree on that. I think the 1 through 4 is the gravy of it.
Do
but
you?
I think getting Zubac, because of his contract, notably, it's a friendly contract.
The problem that you have with Zubac is you don't know how he is going to function within how they want to play.
I mean, undoubtedly. And he called in earlier today and said that he thinks that he can play a faster pace and do more of what they want, and that he didn't get opportunity to do that in L.A. I mean, we'll see, right? Listen, we don't know. There's no question. And how he works with Siakam is going to be interesting as well.
Well, and here's the difference between when everybody wants to, and Rick Carlisle did this last week too, you want to judge what you get in Zubac between what you get in Miles. We didn't see Miles, and you saw this often. Miles would not even try to go after the board. He would already start down the other end, and Zubac is going to be planted in there trying to get. So that means he's going to have to sprint the floor every time. I just think that is a different dynamic, and I agree with you. He is talented enough and adds a dimension to this team that we haven't seen. But if you're not able to keep up the pace, because we all say we want to play at this pace, very few are capable of doing it. It has to be seen. And I just think 1 through 4, I don't think it's the gravy. I think this is a have to. You gave Mathern up in this deal. I think it's a have to get 1 through 4 on this.
We talked to Zubac earlier. He called in the program at the 1 o'clock hour. That is going to be available on the Fan website. We ask that you listen to it after 6 p.m. tonight, because John's up next. He'll bring you home until 6. We will recap Purdue and Nebraska tomorrow. Yep.
What happened to the crossover?
It's your turn.
Huh?
I'm handing it over right now.
Wow.
You feel that? I'm handing you the baton. Don't drop it. John's up next. Thanks for listening to Query and Company.